Revolution Radio proudly presents live from Phoenix, Arizona, the Truth Denied Talk Radio with host Roxy Lopez. Join us here for topics.
Speaking of Arizona, has turned into, I don't know, it's been dark for almost 2 days. Those of you who live in the state know exactly what I'm talking about. I think it's pretty exciting. We've had a lot of rain. It started yesterday. And it just keeps on coming down. Now, Lordy knows we need the rain here in the desert, but it's being predicted that in 3 days' time we're supposed to get 3 inches. And if you know anything about the state of Arizona, 3 inches is generally our annual rainfall. So you know what happens when it rains on the desert. It becomes like a big cement block, and the flooding begins. So it's pretty interesting. The strong storm system pumped Pacific moisture into Arizona on Friday, today, giving the state a blast of wet weather with more expected over the weekend. Rain snarled traffic in desert cities as snow plows cleared highways in northern Arizona. Yes, we have major snow as well. The National Weather Service issued a flood watch for east central Arizona, that would be me, and south central Arizona, including the Phoenix area, while a winter storm warning was in effect for northern Arizona. Phoenix got nearly 2 inches of rain today, this afternoon. So the predicted 3 inches over the next 3 days, I think it's going to be more than that, actually. But it will exceed that for sure, the Weather Service said. In Tucson, firefighters were trying to recover a person who was swept away by the high water in the Santa Cruz River. So if you're down in Tucson, be careful. Tucson Fire Department officials said that they believed the person was dead, but the body has yet to be recovered. Several miles off the Loop 303 freeway, those of you who are living near the 303 in Phoenix western outskirts, were temporarily closed due to flooding during Friday morning's commute and into the early afternoon, and some local streets were flooded as well. State high school football semifinal games scheduled for today and Saturday were rescheduled for Monday evening due to the wet weather. The Arizona Interscholastic Association said it rescheduled all their games due to the weather conditions, field conditions, and safety of the players and fans attending the games. Locations around Flagstaff reported a few inches of snow today, and forecasters were expecting more this weekend. So take care out there if you're driving around. I've got friends out in Cottonwood, Flagstaff, Sedona, Payson. So take care of yourselves out there. It's a real, this is different weather for us. And of course, I always say, you know, the last state that I lived in was Seattle, Washington State. And, you know, it rained every day there. But totally different ball game. On the roads here and the freeways and highways here, when it rains, it turns into a river. And so there are a lot of accidents and pileups. And I was out there on the road today seeing lots of cars pulled off to the side. And the desert appears to be an oasis of water at this point. It's all, it looks like rivers, not rivers, I'm sorry, giant lakes everywhere. I love the weather. I love when it's like this. We rarely get this kind of rain, so I'm down with it, and I'm enjoying it, and I hope you are too. Just be safe out there. Now, let's see. You know, we get more photos all the time from all of you who are UFO sky watching, and I love it. I mean, I love your photos. Some of you have even sent chemtrail photos in that have a UFO in the photo. And I personally have taken chemtrail pictures with unidentified objects that show up later when you download them. It's quite fascinating to me. I don't know what this stuff is. My guest is going to talk about a few of these subjects regarding the truth about aliens, ETs, UFOs, and ancient artifacts. His name is Mike Orrell. And Mike is a retired graphic designer and amateur photographer who, get this, he accidentally photographed 10 daylight UFOs in July of 1990 while hiking the San Diego backwoods with 2 friends. Now, after having the objects professionally enlarged to green, Mike discovered that one of the objects exactly matched the acorn shape of the famous Kecksburg UFO that crashed in Pennsylvania December 1965. Now, his UFO object also displayed a strange spike-like projection that he later found on numerous other UFO photos, including astronaut James McDivit's. This anomaly would eventually turn out to be the Rosetta Stone to successfully link UFOs to each other, as well as countless ancient artifacts from numerous civilizations. Mike's discovery has been featured in every newspaper in San Diego. How's that? As well as a 2006 CBS special on affiliate KFMB Channel 8. The Los Angeles Times broke the story and labeled the evidence on Mike's nonprofit website and YouTube video as unsettling. I welcome to the show this evening Mike Orrell. How are you, Mike?
Roxy, thank you for having me on your show so much. And by the way, the clouds are very dark here in San Diego. I think it's going to pour any moment.
Yeah, it's been interesting. It's been dark all day here. It's very different because we are the Valley of the Sun, Mike.
Right.
You know, everyone, if you want to take a look at anything that Mike's got, it's all hooked up on the front page of the truthtonight.com. You know that. If you have questions in the chat room, please feel free to ask them. And Thomas, our producer this evening, will be more than happy to get the questions to us as well. If you're listening to the show and you'd like to join the chat room at Revolution Radio, just go to freedomslips.com. That's freedomslips.com. And you'll see the chat room right there. Just click it and climb aboard with the rest of the crew here. Mike, fascinating story that you've got going. And of course, before we get into the actual story, one thing I would like to know, because I find this quite interesting, you know, mainstream has been accused of, not, really taking the UFO phenomenon, I guess, seriously. And the fact that you actually got in every newspaper in San Diego, as well as the CBS special, what do you think happened there? Why did they, and by the way, did they do you justice on those interviews in the newspaper in San Diego and as well as the CBS report?
Well, that's a very good point, Roxy. I am very lucky because I am just an amateur photographer. And, I think because that it's not just a story, but the photograph itself has already been authenticated by professionals around the world. That really helps set the minds of the numerous journalists and publishers who've written about me and saw my story on my YouTube video on my website. So it's not just hearsay, but when they saw the pattern that you mentioned, that I've linked to other UFO photographs that I first found in my accidental photo that I took July 1st, 1990, and then I linked it to ancient artifacts, well, that's a whole other ball game, and as far as I know, that has never been accomplished before. So I'm very lucky indeed to have got, all the publicity that I have, because a lot of people told me that they've tried, and it's really difficult to get the word out. And yeah, you're right, there's a lot of skeptics out there, but there's so much UFO activity happening lately all around the globe that it really is one of the star phenomenons right now. I mean, it's just amazing. And I see it on your website as well as all over the internet.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, and I think with the age of the internet and the ability to have conversations with people all over the world now via social media websites, I mean, we just keep talking about this, how we've been able to, and of course with the technology of cameras today, even an iPhone has a great camera in it. And if you see something, an anomaly in the air, you can pretty much film it, in video. So I think that's what's produced more and more photographic evidence, if you will. Now let's go back to this 1990 hike. Where were you hiking, and what was the agenda of the day? And you had two friends with you. Can we talk about that day? How did it start out for you, and what was the motive of the day?
Well, I had just bought a new Canon EOS 650 35 millimeter digital camera, and I did have my own darkroom at the time. And it was a glorious sunny day in San Diego, so I grabbed two friends of mine, and we decided to head east in San Diego so I could get some photos and possibly enlarge them and sell them on some of my galleries that I had going. So we went to a place called Santa Isabel and discovered for the first time this park called Inyaha, it's spelled I-N-A-J-A, Memorial Park. And I had never seen it before, and I've been a native San Diego all my life, Roxy. And what was really interesting was that at the very entrance to this park, there is a memorial marker dedicated to 11 firefighters who died November 25th, 1956, fighting a fire in that area. Well, my friend pointed out to me that, hey, Mike, you were born one day later. And I was born November 26, 1956. And as a New Ager, I believe in reincarnation. And I'm thinking to myself, well, that's a sign that something special is about this park. And so we took this loop trail to scenic spot number 7, where I'm looking at 18 miles of the San Diego River Valley. And I knew instantly it was the best shot of the day, and it was getting late. So I put my camera down on this brick wall that they constructed there that has a periscope device that tells you what mountain you're looking at. And I squeezed off one picture in between heartbeats. It's a photographic trick. But then we had to move along quickly because there's mountain lions in the area, Roxy, and I'm in charge of this party. So 2 weeks later, I get the film back from Thrifty's, and as I'm thumbing through the 4x6s, I come across the shot that I took at scenic spot number 7, and right away I see that there's 9 strange dots in the upper left of the photograph, and I decided, whoa, what is that? And I checked out all the other photographs that I thought might have the same negative glitch or whatever it was, and none of them had it. So I blew it up in my enlarger, and I noticed that the objects were uniform in density and shape. And I said, wow. And I showed them to a photographer buddy of mine who said, oh, Mike, those are flying ducks. And I'm going, Jeff, I know that you're not an artist, but I don't see any wings or ailerons on these objects. So I went back to the same spot 2 weeks later, Roxy, and I photographed birds and planes in the same spot. I got the film back, I developed them, and I realized that they didn't match these objects at all. And at one point, I was convinced that I had taken a 1 in a billion photo of UFOs hovering over the San Diego River Valley. And that's when I called the San Diego UFO Society, and they said, Mike, you have to have it enlarged to grain. You have to actually see the grain of the negative, which I couldn't do in my own enlarger. So I went downtown, and they blew it up, they took a picture, and they blew it up again, and the rest, as they say, is history. I saw the formation.
Is this the photo? I know that you sent me a couple of them, but I've got one on my website on the schedule page. Is this the photo we're referring to with a bunch of, it looks like a bunch of dots?
Yes.
Okay.
And that is a close-up. That's a close-up of the formation. And like I said, none of us saw the objects at the time I took the photograph because they were so far in the background. I mean, literally, they're probably 5 miles away from where I took the photograph. But I had my zoom lens on maximum zoom, and fortunately, I had the brick wall, and I used my little breathing technique, and they came in really good focus. And it was a single craft on the right side of the valley that sort of was like a blob, so I didn't examine it closely for almost a week and a half because the formation, I mean, there's 3 of them on the left that are in a popular triangle formation, and you just don't see that with birds or planes. But when I started studying the single craft on the right, I noticed that the left contour of the object was in perfect focus. And as it so happens, I was collecting UFO evidence off the TV after I'd taken my photograph, and this is back in 1990. And the famous Kecksburg UFO event was covered by Unsolved Mysteries, and I recorded it. And when I looked at the left contour of the single craft in my Inyaha UFO photo, I noticed it was a perfect match. It was acorn-shaped, except for this strange spike-like projection 2/3 up the left side. And when I saw the spike-like projection, I recognized that from another program that I had recorded UFOs on called Secrets and Mysteries, and they showed the famous UFO photo taken by astronaut James McDivitt on the Gemini 5 flight in June of 1965, and McDivitt himself literally talks about a beer can-like shape with a large arm sticking out, which matched my UFO photograph. And that's when I said, I think I'm onto something, and I started looking for other UFO photographs and evidence, and I hit a gold mine at bookstores with ancient petroglyphs, the Nazca lines.
What do you mean?
I started finding all these projecting triangular or acorn shapes that matched my UFO photograph.
Okay.
In particular was a book by Marilyn Bridges called Markings, and on page 9 and 27, there's huge projecting triangles, and another one that's called the Concord, and they match my UFO photograph, which, in my opinion, is the answer to who made the famous Nazca lines in Peru. These large markings on the desert floor in Peru that are all made by one single line, and they are flawless, and nobody knows exactly why they were made. Some have theories that they were aligned to constellations or pointing at water sources, but none of them panned out. And on my website, I do the comparison, as well as my YouTube video, on how these projecting triangles match 5 different UFOs, as well as all these ancient artifacts. And Roxy, that's why I got all the press, because these guys saw it and they're going, wow, I don't care who this guy is. The evidence speaks for itself. And there you go.
Right. And just for the sake of the listeners who are in the chat room right now, that's why I'm really suggesting, if you're listening to the show right now and you're not in the chat room, you might want to scoot on over there, because we've been dropping links into the chat room of the very photos that we are discussing right now, and I'd like you all to take a look at them. I have Mike's website in there right now, so if you click on that link, it'll take you to right to the photos. Now, I wanted to ask you something. Since I saw this photo, since you sent it to me, Mike, why does it appear? Okay, let me tell you. When I first saw the photo, this is what it looked like to me. And I look at a lot of footage. Trust me, tons. I get tons of footage.
I bet you have.
Sent to me, and still photos as well. What it looked like to me at first was, and forgive me, because of the pinkish color.
Yeah, I know.
It looked like, right? It looked like track marks on skin.
Yep. My buddies make fun of that as well.
Do they really? And
yet,
so I was like, what the heck did he just send me? And then I thought, God, maybe he sent me the wrong photo. But then, of course, you have your website, so I went over there, and, of course, it's the same photo. Now, one thing I will tell you right now is that I've never, in all the footage I've ever looked at, I have never seen a photo like this with the pink tones and the reddish pink burgundy dots. I've never seen anything like this. So I guess what I want to know is, why is it this color?
Well, that's a very good question. And just earlier tonight, the sky was that same color with the setting sun as these dark clouds move in. And at the very time I took this photograph, like I said earlier, it was approaching sunset. The sun was dipping down quickly to the west, and it was creating this pinkish haze in the sky. And when you look at the full photo, the Inyaha UFO photo, you'll notice that there's a blue haze being created in the valley below these objects, which is why I took the photograph in the first place, because I thought that was fantastic. But later on, I could actually see flecks of blue reflecting underneath the shiny undersides of these objects. So when you look at the close-up of the formation, when you see that pink background, that is the natural color of the sky. And I did that so people can see the objects clearly. And once again, I had this photograph authenticated by Dr. Bruce Maccabee, who declared the objects were unidentifiable and opaque. And I've also met with the Russians on 2 different occasions. And Marina Popovich, the famous test pilot from Russia, was just amazed. And she actually held up my photograph on ABC during an interview, and we exchanged UFO photographs. And what's really funny now, Roxy, is that even if I didn't take this UFO photograph, if you look on my website and you see the James McDivitt photograph, which is a projecting acorn shape, that alone stands as the marking stone to literally help solve the UFO mystery by finding all these different UFO photos, and one was taken by Dorothy Izot in Vancouver, Columbia, or British Columbia. She also has captured a projecting acorn shape, as well as a couple other astronauts, and this all adds up to a very tidy conclusion that aliens want us to know that not only do they exist, but just like metaphysics says, they have been around since our planet was formed and have aided mankind in our evolution. And I certainly believe they're coming back, and very soon as well. And
yes, and I'd love to talk about that very subject matter a little bit later. We're going to be taking a quick break. One of the questions that I do have is this mountain range anywhere near a military facility?
Actually, it's not. And I had some people try to tell me that they were jets, and once again, you can clearly see these objects had no wings or ailerons, and the triangle formation on the left.
Welcome back for a great conversation. Look, I can appreciate that a few of you who are writing into me right now, and you have before, and someone in particular on Facebook as well, right at the moment. I'm sorry. I do not have a phone line that you can call in to listen to the show. I don't have that available. I'm sorry. If there was another way, perhaps via a telephone, Thomas, if we have any other way that someone only has dial-up, a way to listen to the show, Thomas will let me know, and I can probably try to help you out there. Let's see. No. Okay, he says no. So I'm so sorry, and of course I'm saying I'm sorry to somebody who is not listening. Many people who are not listening to the show right now, aren't I? Because that's what they're trying to do. But back to the conversation. And those of you who are listening, if you're on those threads right now, can you let those other people who are asking for a phone number to listen to the show on, can you do me a favor and let those people know that we don't have such a thing? And I do try to let you know this, and I don't know why they don't believe me. Strange thing. Anyway, I love the idea, Mike, that you had Bruce Maccabee involved, as well as Marina Popovich. Now, does she live in the United States or does she live in Russia?
No, she lives in Russia. And,
she does. So you sent all the photographic evidence to her, is that right?
No, she came to the United States with a delegation years ago. She made an appearance up in Los Angeles, and some people know about my story and contacted me, and I contacted the people up there, Dr. Catherine Grace, and she invited me to the party, and I brought my material. And at one moment, I was able to give her delegation a presentation, and you should have seen them. There was a UFO photo that she released that was on the old program called Hard Copy, and it was a projecting triangle with a long whip or tail underneath it, and that exactly matched the Concorde drawing at Nazca. And the delegation, they were talking in Russian. They couldn't believe this comparison. It was exactly the same. And then a month later, she made her way to San Diego to the house of a real estate mogul named Barry Nussbaum, and once again they invited me, and not only did I give another presentation to him, but we exchanged UFO photographs, and she signed one of hers to me, and I set up an interview with her and Jim Wilkerson on ABC Channel 10, and she was very appreciative of that. And sure enough, during the interview, she held up my UFO photograph during the interview, and that was the first time it made it on TV. And I'm sure that if she thought there was any hopes about it, that she would not have been as involved with it as she was. But she was not a astronaut or a cosmonaut, as many people think. Her husband would not let her go into outer space because it was so dangerous at the time. But she was a test pilot and is the president of the World Association of Scientists. I haven't heard from her lately, but she's done some great work for ufology.
Excellent. And very fascinating, Mike. I mean, this is what a lucky day you had, where you encountered these. Now, let's go back to that hike. What did your two friends think about this?
Well, this is what's really funny. It was a great hike, and I've hiked all the back trails of San Diego, and I'm a native San Diegan, and I'm very fortunate to have grown up here. Of course, none of us saw the UFOs at the time, but we did realize it was an extraordinarily beautiful trail. And 2 weeks later, when I went back there to photograph the birds and planes to compare it to the UFO photograph, at scenic spot number 7, I turned around, and Roxy, I don't know if you've seen this, but 15 feet behind the spot, I shot the UFO photo at scenic spot number 7 at Inyaha Memorial Park. There is a boulder that looks like an alien's head, and I was so shocked to see this. As an artist, I recognize faces immediately. So I took a couple of photos of this, and once again, I just contacted a couple of newspapers, and they ran it. They loved this alien rock face, and CBS demanded that we go back up to the same spot in 2006 so they could photograph the same spot where I shot the UFOs, and me cradling the alien rock boulder, which, by the way, is my second YouTube video. And I was very fortunate that they wanted me to have that YouTube video where they authenticated, once again, the UFO photograph at Chrome Photo Lab. They looked at the negative, and that's another thing I'm very fortunate. It was in a 35 millimeter negative and not just digital, because I'm all digital now. We don't deal with 35 millimeter negatives. But anyway, they said the negative is untouched, is in perfect shape, and these objects are definitely in the negative, and they are in the air. But they couldn't claim that they're UFOs or space objects because who to say what that is, It's
the $6 million question. Is it military or is it? Yeah. Did Bruce Maccabee happen to comment at all, or Marina Popovich at all, at how large they think the objects are?
Well, that's what's very interesting. Bruce was very succinct in what he said, is that they were unidentifiable and opaque, which means light is not going through them. Now, if we revert back to the 1990 acorn-shaped craft that Unsolved Mysteries duplicated for covering the textbook incident, it is the size of a VW bus, or a VW bug, I should say. And it's like a one-person type craft. And I've included photos of that program on my website to compare the acorn-shaped contour. But I would say that they are about the size of a VW bug. And what's very interesting is later on in my website, I've built about 30-some pages. And there is a page that's called Ancient Aliens 2. And one of these objects that I found in numerous books while researching is an acorn-shaped object with an alien protruding from it. There's nothing else this could be. And, I watch every program of Ancient Aliens on History Channel.
Right.
And I've seen some great stuff. I love that show. But they don't have anything like this. So
now,
I would recommend.
let me interrupt you just for a second, Mike. I'm on your website. I've been on it since we got on the show. I don't know if it's just me, but your website is pushed all the way to the left. Is that how it is?
Well, actually, yes. And
okay, all right. I just want to make sure it's not just me. And then this reference that you just made, actually, I'm trying to follow along, and I would love my listeners to do the same thing. If you're not following along, you should be, because this is fascinating, his website. But you want to go to www.orrem, as in mother, A, N, the number 7.com. That's orman7.com. So,
or you can just Google my name, Roxy, Mike Orrell, and that'll get you there quick.
Okay, and Orrell is spelled Orrell, for anybody that doesn't know. Okay, so there you go. So, sorry to interrupt you. I just wanted to get that straight, because I thought, oh, gosh, I wonder if he knows his website is all pushed to the left. All right.
Well, I built this website back in '97. And I've been adding to it as the years go by. And for a year now, I haven't been on the website because my girlfriend and I broke up. And I left my half of the computer, which I owned, with her. And believe it or not, I haven't been on it for a year. I got my own place now, and I actually have to go to the library to use the computer besides my cell phone, which I enjoy as well. And it's a little rough on me right now, but at the same time, I hold this story way above my head, whatever goes on in my personal life. And I have some physical issues, too, with a bad heart and back. I'm disabled, literally, and yet that's not stopping me in one moment from promoting this incredible story for all of us, because I really believe that this is the next evolutionary phase of mankind. We're going to do exactly what Betty Hill discovered when she got abducted, that there are planets that trade between themselves, as she was shown on that star map, and we're going to be one of those planets. And I think, Roxy, it's going to happen in our lifetime. And the aliens want us to know that they are peaceful and friendly, and that's why they tuck their abductees back in bed, and they've actually prepared in-betweens, half human, half aliens, to teach us all the spiritual knowledge that we're going to need after the contact event, which I think will precede a major catastrophic event, like possibly the shift of our magnetic poles, which is yet to happen and is over 230,000 years overdue. That's all part of this revelation, and that's all on my website as well.
Let me ask you this. It's interesting because I do speak to many individuals who have two, and I just don't know where this polarized view comes from. They either say the aliens, are bad, or they're good, or some are bad and some are good. And you had just mentioned, they're good. They want us to evolve, et cetera, et cetera. There are many people who join your thought. And then you talk to an experiencer like an author, Whitley Strieber, would beg to differ. And if anybody out there has read the book Communion or seen the movie, I mean, it scares the living, what out of you. So which one is it? I mean, and I guess what's more important, Mike, what has brought you to this perception that they are good and that they are there and that they want to help us? Because the Betty and Barney Hill, that's another abduction case that was presented as being just, I mean, I wouldn't have wanted to been them. I mean, these people were scared out of their mind.
Yes, and with Betty Hill, everything was going fine, and they were taking samples of her, and they decided to stick a needle in her stomach. And she cried out in pain that hurts. And the alien waved his hand over her eyes, and the pain instantly stopped. And when she asked for information on where they come from, they gladly took her to the control room and showed her a star map that turned out to be Zeta Reticuli, they would find out later, and then told her that these bold lines on this map represent trading routes between planets And the broken lines represent expeditionary routes like the one to your planet. And this is on Google. You can Google Betty Hill and see this. Now, this confirms, by the way, what I read in metaphysics. Now, when I was 13 years old, I witnessed my father die in a dune buggy wreck down in Canamar, Mexico.
I'm sorry.
And my Catholic upbringing really did not fulfill my need to find out what happened to my dad. I wanted to know. Well, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear, and sure enough, his best friend, who was an Army retiree, was studying metaphysics. So in the early 70s, I was forced to read the top writers in metaphysics, which, in my opinion, are T. Lobsang Rampa, who was a Tibetan monk sent west by the Dalai Lama to write about what he'd learned in the Lamasery, and Carlos Castaneda, who was doing his thesis on hallucinogenic plants of native Indians, and literally ran into a Yaka Indian sorcerer, Don Juan Matus, and those writings were awesome. But the cream of the crop, the UFO, or I should say New Age Bible, is the writings of a woman named Jane Roberts, who was a poet who turned into automatic writing into a channeler. And she channeled what would collectively be known as the Seth Speaks works. Her name is Jane Roberts, and what was amazing is that all three writers wrote about the same things, including the existence of the Akashic records, something I never learned in Catholic school, that this cosmic library that exists somewhere in time and space is accessible by any one of us if we know how to venture out of our body and do a little astral traveling. We could see everything that has happened in the past, the present, and the probable future, which is based on present events. This is no doubt how Nostradamus was able to plug in and how Edgar Cayce was able to plug in. And I believe it's going to be par for the course later on in our evolutionary phase. And that's also where I learned, by the way, about aliens and UFOs, that they are emissaries from God, that they seeded our planet, and they have been instrumental in the development of the human species throughout the ages. Now, when you look at my website, and I literally have every page taped to my closet door just as reference, the amount of evidence that they have been around is all over. At Petra in southwest Jordan, right next to Stonehenge is a giant acorn-shaped mound, and it's just amazing, the evidence that I've accumulated, and I get enough for 2 more YouTube videos. And yet, so far, there's, like I said, I'm very lucky, Roxy, to have the press that I've accomplished, but because I'm not an academic wonder kind, I'm not a Stephen Hawking, I'm not getting the help that I need to take this global in the form of a commercial film, which I'd love to have made. I can't afford $1,000 a minute theatrical release of a movie, and yet my website and YouTube stand for itself,
Correct. Yes, I understand. And, you're not alone. I mean, there are so many, whatever you want to call them, activists, truthers, revealers, in this age of technology now, that want to do documentaries, that want to do films, that want to do, and I'm actually in a film that'll be released sometime next year.
Cool.
This is what the fundraisers are all about. They get into, Kickstarter, and there's a couple of them out there. I mean, even some very big, past documentary filmmakers are going that route, going to Kickstarter, raising money. Have you ever heard of this?
Yeah, and I actually went on GoFundMe and just put out a little, hey, help me. And my friends were laughing.
Well, let me say this. The whole idea, first of all, you haven't been to your own website in a year.
Well, I have, but I can't get in it. There's a difference.
You can't add to your website, correct?
If I really wanted to, I could. I would.
What do you mean when you say you can't get in it?
I tried to without having to go back to the home computer that had all my passwords, and it wouldn't let me in.
Okay. So, the website, it's kind of ironic, I was going to say, Mike. What's ironic is you said you had this breakup, and then she took whatever and you took whatever, and it's kind of ironic that half the site is like blank and half the site has got something on it. I think there's something to be said about that as your life unfolds. It's quite interesting. And
there is a correlation there,
yeah. And you don't. I mean, this is quite interesting. But I was going to say, and I don't want to stay on this point too long, but just as for anybody out there, as a matter of fact, I work with a lot of people who have, quote unquote amateur footage, or they're amateur photographers, but yet they have brilliant ideas, they have brilliant accounts of UFOs. And what's starting to happen is people are meeting people. I sometimes liaison, I'm the liaison for people and hook them up with other people, and they start sharing their information with each other, and then before you know it, they're thinking of doing something together as well. But what the point I'm trying to make is we do live in an age where there are so many of us who have so much to share via wanting to do documentaries, etc., that money gets harder and harder to find. Hence, these different websites that have been set up now to aid filmmakers, amateur filmmakers, to raise funds from the public, to get the information out there. So I would say it would behoove you to get those passwords and get the other half of this site filled in here, and start raising some money to put something together. Because, as you say, the evidence in which you produce or have in your possession is extraordinary. And one more link in the revealing of what is all around us every day, all day, and your spin or your impression or your experience with it being that you believe these are ET, and you believe the why, the how, which a lot of people do as well. It would be important, and I think that there are many who would facilitate you going the rest of the way to finish what you started.
Yeah, and I hate to bring it down a notch, but it's funny how many organizations that I have approached, and even my website, as amateur and archaic as it may be, my YouTube video as well, it would seem that with all the writers who backed me, that someone would have stepped up and provided a role as a benefactor to help me out. But there's so many people that they have their own pet theories and pet projects that they only want me to promote their stuff. And this has happened recently. I'm trying to get my stuff out there, and I've never seen anybody who's found a repeating pattern in 6 different UFOs that match ancient artifacts. And when I approach ancient aliens or UFO hunters, they just turn a blind eye. And the idea is I'm just showing them a sample of what's going on my website, as amateur as it is. And I would have thought a long time ago that this would have already been in a major television program, even in search of and unsolved mysteries and sightings way back when, the National Geographic.
I'm going to ask the audience something. Those of you who are listening right now and taking a look at these photos, I want you to be honest. If you're in the chat room, I want you to address what Mike's talking about right now. In other words, do you think that this stuff is worthy to have more world-renowned eyes on it? In other words, for this to be able to go out to the world to see this photographic evidence, what do you think? Give me a 5 up, hands up, hands down kind of thing on it, if you could. And those of you who are listening and are not in the chat room, could you do me a favor and make a comment about it on our Facebook page? Or if you're not on Facebook, info@thetruththenight.com. thinks about what you're saying. And in all fairness, I will say to you this: these are conversations, the one I'm having with you right now, Mike, that I have with many people who have dedicated their entire life to filming UFOs. Entire life. We've got a guy out here named Jeff Willis who does UFOs over Phoenix.com, been doing it for 20 years. There's another gentleman who's been on my show, Wilbur Allen. Phenomenal stuff that he's got, photographic evidence. He lives 6 blocks from the White House, as in President Obama, where the Oval Office. 6 blocks from the White House, has a camera up on top of his home and films nightly, all night long. He's got miles and miles of footage flying over the White House, mind you. There's another gentleman out in California by the name of Jim Kerr. He's been filming. Another gentleman almost in the same vicinity in Northern California by the name of, we'll just call him Tony for now. Another gentleman in New Orleans, Sean Gautreaux, who's got massive footage of triangles. I mean, just massive footage. Jose Escamilla, who is a documentary filmmaker, has been for 25 plus years. You see,
Catching the Rods, that's amazing footage.
Yes, isn't it? And Sean and Jose are now going to be working together. Bill Bryson, another one, extraordinary stuff. Even color photos of the moon. You know, everybody always asks, how come the moon is only in black and white? Well, the moon can't be in black and white. So wait a minute. Why is every picture that we see on NASA website in black and white? Bill Bryson's got colored photos along with Jose Escamilla. So you see all of these people that I've mentioned, some amateur, some not. It doesn't matter. They are all, Jose Escamilla is raising money, I believe, on Kickstarter for a documentary that needs to get out. So even some of those who have put out landmark evidence documentaries, they're having to raise money.
Yeah,
they're having to raise money. So all I'm saying, I know quite a few people who are on the show in Ancient Aliens. All right. Even they get so much information. So, I'm not just saying this for you, Mike. I'm saying this for anybody who's listening, who's feeling the pain that Mike's in, that has really good, strong evidence, photographic evidence, and can't seem to get it out to the world, can't seem to get it, to the next step on the journey. I just want you all to know you're not alone. You're just not alone. With the age of technology, there's thousands of photos, thousands of photographers with some amazing evidence. And the way I look at it is,
your lives.
Oh, great, thanks. Welcome back. And we were talking a little bit on the break about some of the ideas of, how to promote or get the word out, especially in the UFO community. And, it's a tough gig. And Mike, I'm glad you brought it up because I think that it's important for everyone to realize that we, the people of this planet, need to start volunteering and helping one another. I could not do the Truth Denied without the volunteers that I have. They are volunteers all the way up to my webmaster from the beginning. We can't pay anyone to do anything, including myself. And by the way, speaking of donations, let me just take a moment to say as well, Revolution Radio at freedomslips.com, we're listener supported, and everyone here, all the hosts, all of us, all the way up, we're volunteers. So see, these are the types of communities. We are an example of a community of individuals, all right, who are volunteering our time. Okay, producers are volunteering their time here. Guests like yourself, Mike, are volunteering their time here. We do our research. We do our everything that we need to get the truth onto the air. And it is tough, but somebody's got to do it. And believe me, I've been doing this for 4 years now, volunteering all of my time, 7 days a week, by the way. I'm not bragging.
That's impressive.
I thank you. And it's easier now. I used to do 20-hour days, and now I'm down to 18. So, yeah. And let me say this, and I don't get along with everybody, and not everybody loves me. As a matter of fact, we get a lot of hate mail for what we're doing. It doesn't matter, because we do have the support of many listeners and readers, etc. So I just have to mention that as well, that even here at Revolution Radio, we need the community. We need the donations. We need the listeners. And we couldn't do it without everybody. This takes a tribe. Like, for instance, my show would be nothing if I didn't have any listeners, right? I mean, what would be the point to do them if nobody was listening? So we need everybody. We need all of our guests, like you, Mike, as well, bringing your evidence so that we can tell the listeners who can tell other people and get this stuff spread out all over the world. So the world, our global sisters and brothers, really need to come together and realize, need to realize that in order to create the world we want, this is it. We need to unite and create the world that we want so that we can evolve and push through, lift the veil, and learn about where we came from, who we are, and where we're going. It's very important. And that's what, I like about some of your work, Mike, because you address that. So why don't we address a little bit about this in the second hour? Why don't we address where are we from, who are we now, and where are we going?
Well, that's a very good question. And I take refuge in metaphysics, which talks about the fact that the spirit created the flesh and not the other way around. We are here for a specific reason, and it is a spiritual reason. Now, I don't know if you watch on Sundays, but there is a program called The Long Island Medium, Teresa Caputo from Long Island.
I have seen it. Is that the blonde-haired medium?
Yes. And she literally channels the dead. And before her was John Edward. And I went and saw John Edward, and he channeled my Aunt Lamont, who's crossed over. So they literally have this on national TV, evidence that there is no death. We survive physical death. Consciousness, according to metaphysics, is the only true vehicle, and it survives immediately after death. Now, that's important to know. So what is it we're here for? We're here to learn, to spiritually evolve, and to treat our fellow man like we would want to be treated. Now, according to metaphysics, aliens who are emissaries from God are closer to God than we are. And they've been around for a long time. So it would behoove the human species to work at acquiring a relationship with aliens, which I believe they want. And like I said, according to metaphysics, a shift of the magnetic poles is coming. And even Edgar Casey said it's going to happen in a blink of an eye.
Now let's talk about that. When you're referencing this, first of all, I want to know, when you're saying this, do you have any encounters or downloads or telepathic communication with the ETs? Where's this information coming from that you're talking about right now? Or is it just something that's inside of you and you need to say it? Because when it comes to a polar shift, what are you talking about? And when are we looking at something like this? And why do we need to have a polar shift?
All right. First of all, I think it is so important that I was pre-educated. It was a prerequisite that I had studied metaphysics. As a matter of fact, I believed that my father was allowed to die so that I would be motivated to study metaphysics. And he became like Obi-Wan Kenobi to Luke Skywalker. He became even more powerful on the other side. As a matter of fact, he tried to communicate right after he died. Our phone started ringing off the wall with nobody on the other end of the line. And it freaked my mom out. She would grab the police whistle and blow into the phone. And this never happened while my dad was alive. It only happened right afterwards. Well, sure enough, in metaphysics, and John Edwards claimed that our dearly departed can contact us through electromagnetic means. And I look back and I go, oh my God, that was my dad trying to contact me. Well, sure enough, when I'm 19 years old playing football in college, and I had my first bachelor pad, my doorbell, it started ringing. And nobody would be there. And I lived on a balcony where nobody could run away. And at one time it rang. I answered the door within a second. And then I realized, oh my gosh, the doorbell is an electromagnetic connection. And for all intents and purposes, my father is standing right in front of me in a spiritual cloak. And you know what? I spoke to him as if he was right there. I said, Dad, I know that's you. I appreciate you trying to contact me. I love you so much. And the doorbell never rang again without somebody being there. Well, he showed up in my dreams a few times, and I've also had incredible dreams that were almost lucid dreaming, where I was beamed aboard a ship and I actually flew a flying saucer. But I don't claim to have any contact with aliens. I've never been abducted, but I will say this. I have had 3 cases of telepathy where the circumstances were just right, and I had a blank, calm mind, and somebody in the next room had a strong emotional thought, and I heard their words and their voice in my own head. And this happened 3 different times, and I acted upon it, and sure enough, I was right. So it proves to me that telepathy does exist. And as a matter of fact, one of my favorite writers, T. Lobsang Rampa, wrote a book that was dictated to him by his cat, which was amazing to find out that cats and dogs really cut each other down just like humans do. But I totally believe there's so much knowledge that is available to us, and yet it's just not part of our educational system. Now, after the shift of the poles, and I believe they're gathering to have a mass rapture event that will save people, especially people like us, by the way, who are into UFOs and aliens and want contact. And after that, and this is actually in the Bible, by the way, Revelation chapter 6, verses 12 to 14, it says, islands will disappear and every mountain moved from its place. There will be an earthquake like none before. And boy, that certainly sounds like a shift of the poles. And we're talking crustal displacement, not an inner molten core like the scientists are claiming. And just like the movie 2012, I think it's going to be a devastating event. Edgar Cayce predicted it's going to happen in a blink of an eye. 500-mile-an-hour winds are going to level everything on the planet. And these doomsday people who think they're going to find place underground, you don't know if there's going to be water overhead or not. And the only way out of it is off the planet's surface. And I really believe there's going to be a moment of contact, and it could happen in the dead of night. Just like abductees claim they go right through walls and ceilings. Wow. I'm looking forward to it, by the way.
Right.
So
well,
much.
let me say, a lot of people right now, are, especially since the Mayan December 21st, 2012, I think that spurred up in the last 20 years. It really stirred people up. But, back to, ascension or leaving the planet or staying to clean up the mess or this or that and blah, 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 or biblical references and all the rest of it. One thing that I do find very interesting is that the phenomenon on this planet continues, and it seems in one way, shape, or form that in order for us to know about our future, we are taking a really good look at our past. And it seems that beyond a shadow of a doubt, it is our ancient civilizations. I am sure of it. The more we find and transcribe from our ancient civilizations, the more we dig and find cities 7 stories under the ground, or look into these free energy pyramid structures all around the world, the more I realize that we were never alone here on this planet. We're never going to be alone on this planet, and I don't know if we will ever be free of mystery. In other words, I don't know that we will ever be completely demystified on the density that we live. It's possible. What you're talking about, Mike, is that signs. And I think that humanity, from what I can see from the beginning of time, has always looked for a sign that there is something more than just this physical body, brain, heart, voice, that there is something more.
That is embedded in us, isn't it?
Yeah.
And
yeah, it is, isn't it?
And you talk about the Mayan prophecy of December 21st, 2012, which happened to be the exact day that our Earth completed its 26,000-year precessional wobble cycle. The Mayans saw that thousands of years ago, and they thought that would be the event that would herald the shift probably of the poles, which would end the 4th reign of mankind and usher in the 5th reign. Well, what they didn't count on was the fact that aliens might have intervened and, say, the pyramid in Giza, the Great Pyramid, which is purposely built and designed right on the belly of the world, may have stabilized the precessional wobble, which volcanic core samples claim is over 230,000 years overdue, as well as some of the megalithic structures like Stonehenge and some of the other ones. Maybe the 1908 Siberian explosion, which Coral Lorenzen claimed in her book Shadows of the Unknown, affected our magnetic field of our Earth. Maybe aliens have gone out of their way to help stabilize our planet so that we wouldn't be killed before the time that they want us to be taken off the planet. Now, there are videos of alien craft flying into volcanoes, flying in and out of the sun. Is it possible that these aliens who are emissaries from God are doing overtime to help mankind survive, and at some point they are actually going to intervene and save the best of us, the non-violent humans, to start the next generation of mankind? I totally believe that. And that's why there's aliens that are really good, but there are some aliens that just don't really care so much, and when they do their experiments, they're a little rough. Now, I don't know if you saw the movie The Fourth Kind, but
yes,
there has been some alien abductions up in the Arctic that
yes,
they were brutal. And, it's a toss-up whether that's real or not, but I totally believe there are many different species of aliens, and sure enough, one of my writers, P. Sangrampa, in a book called The Hermit, he wrote about a blind monk who was taken aboard a spaceship, and they literally hooked him up to be able to see, and he participated in a remarkable debate defending the human species with all these different kinds of aliens who have achieved spaceflight and are possibly part of the trading, the interplanetary trading, which, by the way, once that happens, will be the end of homelessness and starvation and disease. There's so many abductees that claim that they've been cured of spiritual and physical woes by the aliens who abducted them that is something that mankind is destined for. And according to metaphysics, it's all up to us. It has to do with thoughts. Your thoughts have substance. You think a thought, it goes out to coordination points, and it comes back as a material manifestation. I have seen this in my own life, and that's why I believe I was chosen, like the early Times said, to have these aliens pose for my photograph. It wasn't an accident. They knew I was going to be there and what I would do with it and how I would struggle to bring out the story and help change humans' perception of aliens.
Do you really think you can do that? Do you really think that you can change anybody's perception? Really?
One person can change the world. Now, we've seen a lot of examples of that. And I've been watching all the John F. Kennedy, the celebration of his life at the 50th anniversary of his assassination. Look what John did. I mean, he got us to the moon, and it was just one guy, just one man. And there's been a lot of guys like this. Now, I'm not claiming that I'm some prophet or ufologist even. I'm just a UFO enthusiast who a long time ago saw that mankind is in danger and that we need to make contact with aliens who are emissaries from God and start another wonderful life. I mean, even death will be avoided. That's in Revelations, and death shall be no more. And metaphysics talks about that. It's called a walk-in. You can literally qualify spiritually to leave your body and go on to the next spiritual plane and have some soul who has some karma to fulfill walk into your body and start working on their karma. There's so many wonderful things that await us, but there has to be a majority of the population to get on board before this is going to happen. And I'm sure there's going to be a culling in the herd of mankind, and it's all about trying to follow the Ten Commandments. I'm not perfect by far, so if I can be chosen, anybody can, and that includes murderers in jail. It's all about changing your thoughts, your actions, and your probable future will change as well. That's what I believe.
So basically, you do believe in a heaven and a hell type of an actuality, and you do believe in a, as you said, a culling of sorts, and the good from the bad, and the this and the that, and the blah 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 blah. I don't think I can even really go any further into that kind of discussion right now, and I'll give you a reason in a moment. And I appreciate it, but I think that this is now getting into doctrine. It's getting into dogma. It's getting into something that has been around for a very long time, religion that has controlled the masses, a sort of a mind control and a control. And so to break out of that and then land into this, it's a little iffy,
that's what I tell people.
For a lot of different people. I mean, it gets, now you're talking about, where people have their, what's that? Hello?
Yes. I was just telling you, Roxy, that
Hello?
I'm not religious. Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, you were saying something. I was talking, and then you were saying something, so I couldn't hear you, so that's why I said hello. But anyway, what I'm saying, Mike, is that where we are going, I'd imagine, as far as a civilization on the planet, I think that history, and as far back as yesterday, that I'm calling history, all the way back to the beginning of mankind, there has always been a paradigm: the good, the bad, the yin, the yang, the dark, the light, the bad, the good, all of that. And personally, I don't think that any type of evolution, especially beings that have evolved way beyond our planet, I don't think they live in that sort of paradox anymore. I don't know how anybody can continue to live in that sort of paradigm. But what do you think about that?
Well, I must claim that growing up Catholic, and I went to Catholic school, I thought that was fundamentally a great move by my parents because it established basically that there is a spiritual world, and yet it turns out metaphysics has revealed that some of the orthodox teachings that I'd learned aren't exactly what happened. And I had the courage to understand that truth is ever evolving. Now, my religion now is the same as the ancient Indians. It is truth and loyalty. Now, truth, it's out there. I mean, either UFOs exist or they don't. Either reincarnation exists or it doesn't. I care enough to find the answers, and I am loyal to that truth. And it sometimes isn't easy. A lot of my friends who know some of my inner thoughts, they think I'm condemned because of some prophecies that have come true that I have interpreted about the historic Jesus. But that's a whole other story. We don't want to go into that. But I believe that, like I said, I'm not religious. I am spiritual. And that's what it's all about. My religion is truth and loyalty. My code is bravery and generosity. This is the American Indian way, and it's the same as it is with me. And wherever my consciousness is, in this universe or another one, I practice the 4 moods of stalking: cunningness, ruthlessness, sweetness, and patience. I use all 4 of those moods in whatever I do, even in this conversation with you.
What were those again?
Cunningness. Just think of the lions on the Serengeti, how they work together. Cunning. You have to be cunning. But then you have to be ruthless. You have to make the kill. And you have to be sweet. You have to share the gains. And you have to be patient. You have to be patient. That's one of the hardest things to do, and especially in my particular
And where
case.
does this philosophy come from?
It comes from the writings of Carlos Castaneda, who wrote about the Yaka Indian sorcerer, and those were the 4 moods of stalking. And you stalk whatever environment your consciousness finds itself. And that's a way to be alert, to practice clarity, and at the same time, I practice my new religion, which is truth and loyalty. Now, it's not easy being loyal to the truth, Roxy. I'm telling you, there's a lot we could go into with what's in the Akashic records concerning what happened with the historic Jesus, but it fundamentally changed my life, and it qualified me for the next phase, which was this alien revelation that has been handed to me. And this is like my 30th radio interview, and I still claim I'm just an amateur, you know. I've given a couple presentations, and I need to go to the next phase with it, but I'm not giving up. I've never been to the UFO conference that they have down in wherever it is. And I was a MUFON member, by the way, for a while. I was an investigator trainee, and I enjoyed that. And they got me in contact with Bruce Maccabee, but they never put my stuff in their journal, and I was very upset about that. I also approached Michael Shermer in person for his Skeptic magazine, and he assured me that my story and photographs that I gave him would appear in his magazine.
Why do you think they don't?
6 months later, I realized what a fool I was. You know, Shermer's job is to be a skeptic, and with this, which may be real evidence of UFOs, he's going to be out of work. And Philip Glass, back then, you know, I approached them all, and it's like they're not interested.
Now, what do you think about what do you think about people who think that alien beings are satanic or Satan or Luciferian?
Well, you know, there are some people that they are stuck in a religious dogma that I am not. Now, I will tell you this. I believe that, and this was just on TV the other night, Roxy, these people have had near-death experiences, and some of them went to heaven, but others found themselves
We have about 20 minutes left of the show, so thanks for tuning in. You know, you just started to talk about a thought that you were having, Mike, about somebody in Hades, I think was the last thing you said, right when the break broke in on us.
Right. According to metaphysics, there is a Hades condition that literally surrounds our planet. These are individuals who were caught up in whatever physical vice that they could not release, and they are trapped there until they literally see the light or ask for God's help. Now, just the other night on television, they were talking about NDEs, near-death experiences, and especially with children who have drowned and are able to come back. They talk about how they have been met by Jesus and that they've walked into the light but were told to go back. Well, a couple cases were some businessmen who found themselves in the Hades condition and were literally being torn apart. And one guy said it was the most frightening event in his life, and he heard a voice that said, "Ask for God's help." And he did, and he was delivered from that environment. And it changed his life after he recovered on the operating table. Now, I've actually discovered ancient Indian petroglyphs that shows this Hades condition. There was an individual climbing a rope that had 7 circles on it, and 7 is God's number. And at one point, there's a zone where all these animals are surrounding and barking at him. Well, my own brother actually had an out-of-body experience and was in this zone, and it is very frightening. So it would behoove us.
How do you get in this zone? Like you go to sleep at night, and
well,
you go to a dream?
Anybody who wants to astral plane and go on a little expedition, which we all have the ability to do, if you know how to achieve meditation, you have to go through this zone. And it's important to know that your thoughts are going to direct where you go. So you should probably be practice a little purification and know that good rules and not evil. Now, people who are associating aliens with evil demons, I don't think our movies are helping in the portrayal of aliens devouring humans, as well as the fact that aliens, some of them might look devilish. There's different kinds of aliens, reptilians and different types with big eyes that would scare anybody. However, imagine if once we have contact and a new generation of humans are born into an environment where colonies of aliens are all over the place, they would not be afraid. They would accept it as normal. And I believe there will be away teams going to these other planets to set up colonies and trading posts, and there won't be any more armies, and we won't be shipping weapons out to any planets. You know what happened? Apollo 11, of course, had a UFO encounter, Buzz Aldrin and Neil Armstrong, and it was blacked out. But fortunately, hand-wave radio operators received the exact transmission, and there were alien ships lined up on the opposite side of a crater, and they were Buzz Aldrin and Neil were talking about it, and Buzz has later admitted, yes, we did have an alien encounter, and they don't like us going out into outer space and to the moon, especially with all our spiritual problems that we're having. I mean, you just read a newspaper, Roxy, and they're still exploding cars in Iraq and Afghanistan and killing innocent women and children. We got some serious problems on this planet, and I can't wait till the day of redemption that the Indians say is coming. That there's going to be a massive, decision making for those people who refuse to change from their violent ways. And that's why I'm doing what I'm doing right now. I'm trying to talk people into changing their ways. You know, I practice right thinking, and it's not easy when somebody does me wrong. But I have seen how my thoughts, which have substance, they can affect people. And the stronger the thought, the more powerful the manifestation. And you don't want to cause people grief. You want to treat people as you would be treated. This is part of the spiritual way. And that will keep your karma clean. And next thing you know, you're going to be part of the new phase of human evolution with interaction from aliens and free of disease and cancer and all these things that are killing us right now. They're going to be gone. I mean, that's a great promise that I'm holding on to. That
it's quite interesting, Mike, if I may. Again, it is so fascinating to me how polarized thinking of humans is on this planet. Because you have people who are on the planet saying and thinking and believing what you are believing and experiencing. And then you have people that are experiencing something absolutely completely different and completely unaware of a bigger picture. But I want to go back to a few things that you said, and just to go there, because there is mention of, you were talking about, end time scenarios and the role that, alien beings would play. And what's really interesting about this is that there's a thread of a story in all religions, like how the earth came to be, how the world was populated, the Adam and Eve of every story, the heaven and hell of every story, the Jesus, the Muhammad, the Savior, the Guru, the whoever, in each religion that came to set humanity free, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And many believe at this point that we are in something phenomenal in astrology, connects us to the alignment of the stars, planets, and everything right now, and something called the Christ consciousness, to which all healing, all this, how that, plugging into this Christ consciousness, and then the consciousness itself has revealed itself on the planet, etc. And many are also discussing aliens are good, aliens are bad, or some aliens are good and some aliens are bad, bringing that same paradigm we have on here, that same perception into outer space, with the aliens, the good, the bad, the dark, the light, the good, the evil, etc. So some believe alien beings are all satanic and they're fallen angels, and so they're, basically coming here to hurt us. Some believe like the alien abductions, let's say, are really, or cattle mutilations as well, which is really a phenomenon, are the aliens experimenting with mainly reproductive organs. Some people believe that we are all created from, aliens, and that they've tampered with our DNA, and that's why we can only use 10 to 12% of our brain, and that we haven't been able to tap into the rest of it and use it, and that they've basically put us together in a petri dish, I guess, and we're just basically a slave race, and now we're going to the next level of this slave race. Some people believe that they made a mistake when they were putting our genetics together, our genome, our DNA, and that we have broken out as a civilization, and we are actually beginning to evolve into this next dimension of who we are, and that the aliens don't know what to do about it. The colonies, you said, in the future, as you see it, the peace on Earth and the colonies of aliens everywhere. Well, there are those who believe and have documented evidence that they are here now. They are under the ground now. They are housed in Colorado and Area 51, Nevada, and et cetera, and different places under the ground throughout the world, and that we already have aliens here. Some say those aliens are in Dulce, New Mexico is another one. Some people say those are good. Some people say those are bad. At the end of the day, I think you know what I'm saying. This whole paradox, this whole paradigm of belief system. What if, and I don't know if you've considered this, what if indeed all that's happening is that we are evolving our minds to come to an understanding of something that has always been? It is simply our perception that is changing. And what if aliens have always been here? What if these ships have always been flying around the planet Earth? What if they did seed us? What if they are good and bad, just like we are? What if there is no heaven on Earth where everybody's just going to be happy? What if this is just another day in the life of planet Earth?
You know, it's funny. We were talking about a form of alien spacecraft known as rods. And
yes.
Jose, what's his last name?
Escamilla.
Escamilla. Well,
yes.
Many years ago here in San Diego, when those rods were very popular on TV, we had one of our news anchors, Denise Yamada from Channel 8. She went up to a park with her cameraman, and she set the camera on sport mode, like Jose recommended, and lo and behold, she photographed rods cruising over San Diego.
How cool.
It was amazing.
Did you see
the
the footage?
It was, you know.
How big were the rods?
You know, it was hard to tell, but they were moving so fast. Some of them looked like 2 football fields long. Now, I know Jose has captured some that are a mile or so long.
I know. It's crazy.
Now, here's the thing. Those objects exist. The question is, what is their purpose? Are they observing mankind? Are they working for a higher spiritual authority? What is their purpose? What are they doing? Is it possible that these are instruments of God somehow, keeping a tab on mankind? Either way, they exist, and unfortunately, I think it cost the anchor, Denise Yamada, her job, because within weeks, she was off the air and gone. Now, with my story, there's been a couple publishers and one news anchor who covered my CBS story, and they mysteriously went off the air too. I don't know if it's because it's such a controversial subject, but you know, there's nothing they can do to me. I came out with this story with guns blazing and not asking for a dime, and I'm not at risk of losing my government credentials. But speaking of that, let's bring up Philip.
What do you mean you're not at risk of losing your government?
I mean, they're not going to take my job because I'm on disability. I used to work for the county. There's nothing they can do with me.
What did you do for the county?
I worked in maintenance at the Topolinsky Children's Center, where we took care of adopted kids and stuff. And
nice.
I also was supervisor for security for the Chargers and Padres. And because of my back and heart issues, I have chronic atrial fibrillation. I had to give up those jobs and go on disability, which sucked because I love both my jobs. And there's no telling how long I will literally be alive. I've had some close calls with death, and as far as I'm concerned, I'm on extended play, and I will give every ounce of every day I got to help promote my civilization to aliens and help change the consciousness of mankind. Because, Roxy, that is the trick. You have to keep volunteering along with all your helpers, and we are going to win this battle. And it's all about mankind evolving. And according to metaphysics, aliens intervened and literally helped create a more peaceful human. We are the byproduct of their engineering. And they continue to do that to this very day by creating in-betweens, half human, half aliens. These women who have been abducted and have embryos taken out later that are half human, half alien.
Don't you think that's mean?
It depends on the overall goal and purpose. What is their motive? And their motive is, in my
if you've ever met anybody that has had a baby removed, and I have, that have had their children removed from their wombs, and the torture that they go through mentally, it's terribly sad.
Undoubtedly.
And so I just think that there are some things that are really barbaric and brutal and unloving. These are not loving gestures.
Right. But if you look at the big picture,
there's no but.
They're doing.
Mike, there's no but. These are barbaric, murderous, in my opinion. And if you want to present another bigger picture, that's fine. But in that regard, and maybe it's because I am a woman, and that is an unforgivable, just unforgivable thing. So, but a bigger picture would be
that they are preparing mankind for our next evolutionary spiritual phase, and they are making teachers that will teach the survivors all the spiritual knowledge that we need to have. There's going to be thousands.
Okay, so do you think that you could, if you even ever know anyone that can communicate with these aliens, maybe you would think that an evolved species would understand 101 of respect, which is asking permission first?
Would you have given permission? I mean, if you knew that your child is going to be ripped out of your womb, but it will be taught by a superior race and will grow into...
If I was told the truth about something and then it was my decision, which it should be, then I could actually make a much more educated guess on what I wanted to participate in. The question is what I would do. The question would be an educated guess. If I was told the truth, see, I can deal, and I'm sure my listeners are feeling the same way about now. I can deal with somebody telling me the truth. I can handle the truth. It's the non-transparency, deceit, betrayal, lie, and building of mistrust. I can't handle that. I don't like that.
Right. I understand where you're coming from.
That's what I'm saying. So if they want to build a better world and you want to use me, you need to tell me the truth.
And how many women would go for that? I don't think there'd be too many. I think their obligation is to fulfill God's will.
They're just as bad as any murderer here. They're just as bad as any thief here.
They're not murdering.
They steal babies.
Well, they are creators. If they created us with God's blessing.
But what gives them the right as an alien being? What gives them... Well, we could go on and on with this. I mean, you see it one way and I see it another. I'm going to print spiritual... The claims of these spiritual principles that I see you throwing right out the window. They're 101 of spirituality, yet these beings don't have respect, they don't have transparency, they don't have honesty, they are thieves, and so
and yet,
I don't get it.
They tuck us back into bed after abducting us.
Oh, that's oh my God, you're giving me the goosebumps now. So beat me up, rape me, steal my baby, but don't forget, tuck me in and give me a little good night-night kiss. That sounds really twisted.
I would laugh extremely loud at the irony of that, but I understand where you're coming from because the woman who was interviewed on TV was in absolute tears when she was reintroduced to her half-human, half-alien child. And the aliens wanted her to see the child and embrace it.
I could ask you the same question. That was a woman who was in joy over the experience, and how many women are not in joy, and then they go insane when they are reunited with their half alien, half human baby, because they can't even wrap their mind around what just happened.
And Roxy,
we could go both ways. I mean, you know what I mean? We can both use as how many would. I don't think that's the question, but I can appreciate. And I have read stories like that. And I have talked to women who were happy. I have too. I've talked face-to-face to women who had a hybrid, who were shown their hybrid baby. They don't get to keep the hybrid here on Earth, but they're shown them. And they're happy. And they're relieved that their baby isn't dead. And I mean, that's a huge relief. But, come on, man, we're not machines that you can just put, their sperm and our sperm or whatever, you know what I mean, together and just use us as an incubator, a live incubator, and they don't even pay us to do it.
Well, the payoff is down the road. Now, you look at so many abduction cases, the Allagash 4, and even up-to-date cases where the people don't want to be abducted. they don't want skin and tissue samples taken. But what is the purpose of all of this? And I don't have an answer for that. I don't know what cattle mutilations are all about either. Why are they doing bone core samples and taking the parts, really creating some sort of Sasquatch? But I am totally happy with the fact that aliens, if they want to abduct me right now, I'm willing to go on board.
Well, see, there you got it. See, that's the difference. See, your perception is you're like big in it. You want to go on board. You know, go ahead, use me, this and that, do for whatever you need, which I can appreciate, Mike. I can totally appreciate. I've met people like you who are like, take me up, beam me up, Scotty. You know, and then that's the point I'm trying to make. Yet there are so many ranchers who have had their cows completely mutilated. There are people like we just described, you know, been impregnated and then the baby's stolen on top of it. You know, on and on and on and on and on. Why not just use the people like you who say, hello, I'm here, I'm available, beam me up, Scotty, let's go do this. That's all I mean. There's enough people on this planet that want to do it. Why do they keep taking people who never, ever in a million years wanted this to happen to them?
It's all about natural selection, I guess, and being in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Evolving? Isn't natural selection kind of like a day, you know, like late? You know what I mean? Like old news, old hat. Isn't that, you know what I mean? We can't have our cake and eat it too in this kind of discussion. You know what I mean? That's for both of us. I mean, we could both play devil's advocate with one another. We can't have our cake and eat it too, because then we just start, you know, picking 2 of one and 3 of the other, you know, and make a little story, make a little mold and say, this is what it is. And the reality is, Mike, you believe that you know what it is and everything, but, you know, also, you know, and the only reason why I'm standing on this one, standing up for the ladies out there, you're not a woman and you've never been pregnant. And you might have you may very well have a different stance on this if you were, and the violation that occurs. And I mean, really serious violation that occurs. You may
I'm
have.
not a woman this lifetime anyway. Maybe a previous lifetime I was.
Exactly. And yet, you know, I mean, and I think that's a valid stance. You know what I mean, for sure. Like I said, if the alien species, because I question this myself, my friend, if the alien species is much more evolved, then they're intact with asking permission. And that's why there is some confusion with them performing acts without the permission of a human being. And there's something huge in that that's very, very bad to me. If you're using bad.
Did they get permission from a higher authority? That's the question. And we are all fodder. We are all fodder for God's will, and we have.
That's, you know what? That's like cult mentality 101. Not anything against you, Mike. Okay, I'm not calling you that. Cult mentality 101 is like the Vatican, like the Catholic Church, like all the rest of it. I'll be the go-between between you and God. I'll be the messenger. I'll carry the message. I'll get it over to them. I'll do the acts of badness. I'll do all that for the good of the whole. And I just personally, I mean, I'm letting you talk too, but I personally don't buy it. I think it's a very old paradigm.
How many descriptions of angels, and this is what Ancient Aliens on the History Channel pointed out, how many sightings of angels were, in fact, UFOs and aliens? Was it aliens that gave Moses the 10 Commandments on Mount Sinai?
Yeah, we don't know, do we?
Who was it that led the Israelites for 40 years to avoid the Egyptian army? And a pillar and a cloud by day and night? And who abducted Ezekiel? Now, aliens, they've been around for a long time. And if anybody checks out my website, they're going to see this evidence in the form of a projecting triangle or acorn shape that's in ancient Indian rock paintings, petroglyphs from Aborigines in Australia to even on the moon. If you look, you'll see that the giant
artifact,
acorn shape on Mare Serenitatis on the face of the moon exactly matches James McDivitt's UFO photo. Maybe that's why NASA hid the photo, because they knew that's an exact match.
Oh, it's so not fair. Oh, you're totally right. Mike, you're totally right. And there I agree, just like the artifacts and civilizations on Mars, and we may even be from Mars. We may have started there and then seeded here. I mean, all of that, you know, very open-minded. Actually, I'm open-minded to the whole conversation we just had, so.
And, you know, people who go to my website, please go to the bottom of the page, and it says Next. That will take you to the next page. I've got 30 linked pages. Photographer, and, you know, I think because that it's not just a story, but the photograph itself has already been authenticated by professionals around the world, that really helps set the minds of the numerous journalists and publishers who've written about me and saw my story on my YouTube video on my website. So it's not just hearsay, but when they saw the pattern that you mentioned, that I've linked to other UFO photographs that I first found in my accidental photo that I took July 1st, 1990, and then I linked it to Ancient Artifacts, well, that's a whole other ball game, and as far as I know, that has never been accomplished before. So I'm very lucky indeed to have got, you know, all the publicity that I have, because a lot of people told me that they've tried, and it's really difficult to get the word out. And yeah, you're right, there's a lot of skeptics out there, but there's so much UFO activity happening lately all around the globe that it really is one of the star phenomenons right now. I mean, it's just amazing, and I see it on your website as well as all over the internet.
Right. Well, yeah. Well, and I think with the age of the internet and the ability to have conversations with people all over the world now via social media websites, I mean, we just keep talking about this, how we've been able to, and of course with the technology of cameras today, even an iPhone has a great camera in it. And if you see something, an anomaly in the air, you can pretty much film it, you know, in video. So I think that's what's produced more and more photographic evidence, if you will. Now let's go back to this 1990 hike. Where were you hiking, and what was the agenda of the day? And you had two friends with you. Can we talk about that day? How did it start out for you, and what was the motive of the day?
Well, I had just bought a new Canon EOS 650 35 millimeter digital camera, and I did have my own darkroom at the time. And it was a glorious sunny day in San Diego, so I grabbed two friends of mine, and we decided to head east in San Diego so I could get some photos and possibly enlarge them and sell them on some of my galleries that I had going. So we went to a place called Santa Isabel and discovered for the first time this park called Inyaha, that's spelled
Revolution Radio proudly presents live from Phoenix, Arizona, the Truth Denied Talk Radio with host Roxy Lopez. Join us here for topics.
Speaking of Arizona, has turned into, I don't know, it's been dark for almost 2 days. Those of you who live in the state know exactly what I'm talking about. I think it's pretty exciting. We've had a lot of rain. It started yesterday. And it just keeps on coming down. Now, Lordy knows we need the rain here in the desert, but it's being predicted that in 3 days' time we're supposed to get 3 inches. And if you know anything about the state of Arizona, 3 inches is generally our annual rainfall. So you know what happens when it rains on the desert. it becomes like a big cement block, and the flooding begins. So it's pretty interesting. The strong storm system pumped Pacific moisture into Arizona on Friday, today, giving the state a blast of wet weather with more expected over the weekend. Rain snarled traffic in desert cities as snow plows cleared highways in northern Arizona. Yes, we have major snow as well. The National Weather Service issued a flood watch for east central Arizona, that would be me, and south central Arizona, including the Phoenix area, while a winter storm warning was in effect for northern Arizona. Phoenix got nearly 2 inches of rain today, this afternoon. So the predicted 3 inches over the next 3 days, I think it's going to be more than that, actually. But it will exceed that for sure, the Weather Service said. In Tucson, firefighters were trying to recover a person who was swept away by the high water in the Santa Cruz River. So if you're down in Tucson, be careful. Tucson Fire Department officials said that they believed the person was dead, but the body has yet to be recovered. Several miles off the Loop 303 freeway, those of you who are living near the 303 in Phoenix western outskirts, were temporarily closed due to flooding during Friday morning's commute and into the early afternoon, and some local streets were flooded as well. State
INAJA Memorial Park. And I had never seen it before, and I've been a native San Diego all my life, Roxy. And what was really interesting was that at the very entrance to this park, there is a memorial marker dedicated to 11 firefighters who died November 25th, 1956, fighting a fire in that area. Well, my friend pointed out to me that, hey, Mike, you were born one day later. And I was. I was born November 26th, 1956. And as a New Ager, I believe in reincarnation. And I'm thinking to myself, well, that's a sign that something special is about this park. And so we took this loop trail to scenic spot number 7, where I'm looking at 18 miles of the San Diego River Valley. And I knew instantly it was the best shot of the day, and it was getting late. So I put my camera down on this brick wall that they constructed there that has a periscope device that tells you what mountain you're looking at. And I squeezed off one picture in between heartbeats. It's a photographic trick. But then we had to move along quickly because there's mountain lions in the area, Roxy, and I'm in charge of this party. So 2 weeks later, I get the film back from Thrifty's, and as I'm thumbing through the 4x6s, I come across the shot that I took at scenic spot number 7, and right away I see that there's 9 strange dots in the upper left of the photograph, and I decided, whoa, what is that? And I checked out all the other photographs that I thought might have the same negative glitch or whatever it was, and none of them had it. So I blew it up in my enlarger, and I noticed that the objects were uniform in density and shape. And I said, wow. And I showed them to a photographer buddy of mine who said, oh, Mike, those are flying ducks. And I'm going, Jeff, I know that you're not an artist, but I don't see any wings or ailerons on these objects. So I went back to the same spot 2 weeks later, Roxy, and I photographed birds and planes in the same spot. I got the film back, I developed them, and I realized that they didn't match these objects at all. And at one point, I was convinced that I had taken a 1 in a billion photo of UFOs hovering over the San Diego River Valley. And that's when I called the San Diego UFO Society, and they said, Mike, you have to have it enlarged to grain. You have to actually see the grain of the negative, which I couldn't do on my own enlarger. So I went downtown, and they blew it up, they took a picture, and they blew it up again, and the rest, as they say, is
1965. Now, his UFO object also displayed a strange spike-like projection that he later found on numerous other UFO photos, including astronaut James McDivit's. This anomaly would eventually turn out to be the Rosetta Stone to successfully link UFOs to each other, as well as countless ancient artifacts from numerous civilizations. Mike's discovery has been featured in every newspaper in San Diego. How's that? As well as a 2006 CBS special on affiliate KFMB Channel 8. The Los Angeles Times broke the story and labeled the evidence on Mike's nonprofit website and YouTube video as unsettling. I welcome to the show this evening Mike Orrell. How are you, Mike?
Roxy, thank you for having me on your show so much. And by the way, the clouds are very dark here in San Diego. I think it's going to pour any moment.
Yeah, it's been interesting. It's been dark all day here. It's just very different because we are the Valley of the Sun, Mike.
Right.
You know, everyone, if you want to take a look at anything that Mike's got, it's all hooked up on the front page of the truthtonight.com. You know that. If you have questions in the chat room, please feel free to ask them. And Thomas, our producer this evening, will be more than happy to get the questions to us as well. If you're listening to the show and you'd like to join the chat room, at Revolution Radio, just go to freedomslips.com. That's freedomslips.com. And you'll see the chat room right there. Just click it and climb aboard with the rest of the crew here. Mike, fascinating story that you've got going. And of course, before we get into the actual story, one thing I would like to know, because I find this quite interesting, you know, mainstream has been accused of, not, really taking the UFO phenomenon, I guess, seriously. And the fact that you actually got in every newspaper in San Diego, as well as the CBS special, what do you think happened there? Why did they, and by the way, did they do you justice on those interviews in the newspaper in San Diego and as well the CBS report?
Well, that's a very good point, Roxy. I am very lucky because I am just an amateur.
School football semifinal games scheduled for today and Saturday were rescheduled for Monday evening due to the wet weather. The Arizona Interscholastic Association said it rescheduled all their games due to the weather conditions, field conditions, and safety of the players and fans attending the games. Locations around Flagstaff reported a few inches of snow today, and forecasters were expecting more this weekend. So take care out there if you're driving around. I've got friends out in Cottonwood, Flagstaff, Sedona, Payson. So take care of yourselves out there. It's a real, this is different weather for us. And, of course, I always say, the last state that I lived in was Seattle, Washington State. And, it rained every day there. But totally different ball game. On the roads here and the freeways and highways here, when it rains, it turns into a river. And so there are a lot of accidents and pileups. And I was out there on the road today seeing lots of cars pulled off to the side. And the desert appears to be an oasis of water at this point. It's all, it looks like rivers, not rivers, I'm sorry, giant lakes everywhere. I love the weather. I love when it's like this. We rarely get this kind of rain, so I'm down with it, and I'm enjoying it, and I hope you are too. Just be safe out there. Now, let's see. We get more photos all the time from all of you who are UFO sky watching, and I love it. I mean, I love your photos. Some of you have even sent chemtrail photos in that have a UFO in the photo. And I personally have taken chemtrail pictures with unidentified objects that show up later when you download them. It's quite fascinating to me. I don't know what this stuff is. My guest is going to talk about a few of these subjects regarding the truth about aliens, ETs, UFOs, and ancient artifacts. His name is Mike Orrell. And Mike is a retired graphic designer and amateur photographer who, get this, he accidentally photographed 10 daylight UFOs in July of 1990 while hiking the San Diego backwoods with two friends. Now, after having the objects professionally enlarged to green, Mike discovered that one of the objects exactly matched the acorn shape of the famous Kecksburg UFO that crashed in Pennsylvania December